The old emergency signal suddenly came alive in the dark emptiness of space. It was like an ancient scream cutting through the silence. Station Commander Veltar sat at his monitoring desk, watching the strange readings appear on his screen. His alien face showed worry as the numbers kept changing. "Commander, we have something weird here," said his communication officer, a younger alien with green skin. "This signal is really old style. The way it's coded, ... It looks human." Veltar felt his stomach drop. He had 4 eyes, and all of them went wide with shock. The signal was coming from Sector 7 Alpha, a place where nobody was supposed to live. That area of space had been empty for hundreds of years. But this signal was definitely human. He could tell by the rough, simple way it was made. The message itself was short, but scary. "This is New Haven Colony. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Entire systems falling. Please, if anyone receives this, ... we need help." Veltar knew about the lost colonies. Every alien in the galaxy had heard the stories. 300 years ago, when humans first started traveling between stars, they built settlements everywhere. Some of these colonies just disappeared one day. Nobody knew what happened to them. Most aliens thought they were all dead. But here was proof that at least one colony was still alive. And they were in trouble. Veltar looked at the protocol book on his desk. The rules were clear. When you get a distress call, you send it to whoever the message came from. In this case, that meant humans. But Veltar was scared. Humans were different from other space-traveling species. Most aliens called them Deathworlders because they came from Earth, a planet so dangerous that it would kill most other life forms in minutes. Earth had deadly weather, poisonous air in some places, wild animals that could tear you apart, and natural disasters that could destroy entire cities. Because humans grew up on such a deadly world, they became incredibly tough and dangerous themselves. When humans showed up at Galactic Council meetings, other aliens would actually move their chairs away. Not because humans were mean, but because they were so strong and fearless that it made everyone else nervous. Veltar had seen videos of human soldiers in action. They fought in conditions that would kill other species instantly. They never gave up, even when losing badly. They protected each other with a loyalty that other aliens found both beautiful and terrifying. "Sir, should I forward this to the human embassy?" asked his communication officer. Veltar hesitated. Once he sent this message to the humans, there would be no stopping whatever came next. Humans didn't do anything small. If their people were in danger, they would send everything they had. But as he sat there thinking, his scanner started beeping again. More signals were coming in, but these were different. These weren't calls for help. These were the attackers. And they were moving fast, heading toward systems where millions of innocent aliens lived. The unknown enemies who were attacking New Haven Colony weren't stopping there. They were spreading out, consuming everything in their path, like a disease moving through space. Veltar realized he didn't have a choice anymore. Whatever was attacking the human colony was also a threat to everyone else. The humans might be scary, but at least they only fought enemies. These new attackers seemed to want to destroy everything they found. He looked at his communication officer and nodded slowly. "Send a message to Earth, and prepare the other council members. They need to know what's coming." As the message traveled through space toward Earth, Veltar couldn't help but wonder what kind of storm he had just unleashed. The last time humans had gone to war on this scale, entire star systems had been changed forever. But maybe that's exactly what was needed now. The giant meeting hall of the Galactic Council turned into complete chaos. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy were shouting at each other, their strange voices mixing together in a loud mess of fear and confusion. Some had tentacles waving in the air, others had multiple heads arguing with themselves, and a few were making sounds that didn't even sound like words. The emergency meeting had been called, within hours of receiving the human distress signal. Now, Dozens of different alien species were packed into the enormous chamber, and nobody could agree on what to do. Ambassador Thexon stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow under the chamber lights. He belonged to something called the Peaceful Coalition, a group of species that believed problems should be solved through talking, not fighting. "Friends, we cannot simply ignore a cry for help," Thexon said, his voice cutting through some of the noise. "Our charter, the very foundation of this council, says we must respond when people are suffering. We have a moral duty here." From across the room, Council Member Zilvac made a sound like angry static. He was a short, round alien covered in gray fur, with sharp teeth that showed when he talked. "Moral duty? Are you kidding me? We're talking about humans here. You know what humans think helping means. Big guns, explosions, and turning entire planets into smoking rocks." Other aliens started nodding and making sounds of agreement. Everyone had heard the stories about human military actions. When humans solved problems, they usually did it with overwhelming force. At the human delegation table, Ambassador Diana Torres sat perfectly still. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair pulled back neatly, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. She had been listening to this argument for 20 minutes now, and her patience was running out. Her assistant lieutenant commander, Bobby Chen, leaned over and whispered to her while showing her a data pad. "Ma'am, we just got confirmation from Earth. The signal is real. It's definitely coming from New Haven Colony. That's one of the settlements we lost contact with during the Great Expansion period." The Great Expansion was what humans called the period 300 years ago, when they first started building colonies on other planets. It was a messy time. Humans were new to space travel. They didn't have good communication systems, and sometimes entire colonies would just disappear without anyone knowing why. Diana nodded at the information, but kept listening to the aliens argue. Some wanted to send a small diplomatic mission to investigate. Others thought they should form a committee to study the situation for a few months. A few suggested they should just ignore the whole thing and hope it went away. Finally, Diana had heard enough. She stood up from her chair, and something amazing happened. The entire chamber went quiet. It was like someone had turned off a switch. Hundreds of aliens stopped talking and turned to look at her. Diana's voice was calm but strong as she spoke. "Honored members of the council, I appreciate that you're concerned about how humans handle military situations. I understand that our methods might seem harsh to species that prefer negotiation." She touched a button on her table, and a large hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a map of space with the location where the distress signal was coming from. "But I need to tell you something important," Diana continued. "While you've been sitting here debating what to do, Earth Command has already received this message. The decision has been made. This isn't really a discussion anymore." The chamber was so quiet you could hear the air recycling systems humming. "You see, there's something you need to understand about humans," Diana said, walking around her table so everyone could see her clearly. "We have one rule that we never, ever break. No human settlement gets left behind. It doesn't matter if they're on the other side of the galaxy. It doesn't matter if we lost contact with them 300 years ago. It doesn't matter if getting to them seems impossible." She gestured to the hologram. "New Haven Colony sent out a call for help. That means humans are in danger. And when humans are in danger, we respond with everything we have." Diana looked around the chamber at all the worried alien faces. "The Earth Defense Fleet is already moving. Ships are launching from every human world in the galaxy. This isn't just a rescue mission anymore. It's a statement. When someone attacks humans, we show up in force." The silence in the chamber was heavy. Every alien there was thinking the same thing. They had just witnessed the moment when the most powerful military force in the galaxy decided to go to war. Diana sat back down and looked at her assistant. "Bobby, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the council has been informed of our intentions. The debate was over before it had really begun. Admiral Tyler Cole stood on the bridge of the massive warship Defiance, staring out at the most incredible sight he had ever witnessed. Ships were appearing everywhere around Earth, not just a few, but hundreds of them. The view outside looked like a metal city was being built in space. Destroyers slid out of the moon's hidden shipyards, their dark holes reflecting Earth's blue light. These weren't the small patrol boats that usually guarded trade routes. These were real warships, built for serious fighting. Behind them came the cruisers, longer, more powerful ships, with enough firepower to level entire cities. And finally, the battleships emerged like sleeping giants waking up, their massive hulls covered in fresh armor that gleamed like mirrors. "Admiral," called Captain Rita Wells from her station. She was his operations officer, a tough woman who had been organizing military movements for 20 years. "I'm getting reports from every human colony in the galaxy. 47 different worlds are sending us ships and people. We're looking at 800 vessels total, and more are still coming." Cole nodded slowly. 800 ships was more than most alien species had in their entire military. For humans, this was what happened when family was in danger, because that's how humans saw it. Every colony, no matter how far away or how long ago it was settled, was still family. "Sir, we're also getting messages from the Galactic Council," said Lieutenant Danny Park from the communications station. 3 alien observer ships want to come with us. They say they want to document our response methods. Cole almost laughed. He could imagine the conversation happening on those alien ships right now. They were probably scared out of their minds, but also curious. Most alien species had never seen anything like this. When they had a problem, they formed committees, held meetings, and debated for months. When humans had a problem, they built an armada. "Tell the alien observers they can come," Cole said, "but make sure they understand the rules. Once we reach the combat zone, they do exactly what we tell them to do. I don't want anyone getting killed because some alien diplomat decided to try talking to hostile forces in the middle of a battle." The truth was, humans had learned some hard lessons over the centuries. Early in their expansion into space, human colonies had been attacked, enslaved, or completely destroyed while Earth debated what to do. Those disasters taught humanity something important. When your people are in danger, you act fast, and you act with overwhelming force. From his position on the bridge, Cole could see the fleet organizing itself. The ships weren't just randomly flying around, they were forming into precise battle groups, fast attack squadrons, heavy assault formations, support vessels, medical ships, and supply craft. Everything needed to fight a war and win it decisively. "Admiral, we're receiving final reports from the outer colonies," Captain Wells announced. "The Mars Defense Fleet is joining us. That's another 120 ships. The Jupiter Mining Consortium is sending their security forces. Even the deep space research stations are contributing escort vessels." Cole watched as more ships appeared on his tactical display. This wasn't just the military responding. This was every human settlement that could spare a ship sending help. Mining vessels had been hastily fitted with weapons. Cargo ships were carrying troops and supplies. Even luxury cruise liners had been converted into hospital ships. "Sir, Earth Command is asking for our departure time," said Lieutenant Park. Cole looked at the massive fleet forming around Earth. In the distance, he could see more ships still launching from hidden bases on asteroids and space stations. The response was so large that it was actually impressive by human standards, and humans were used to thinking big. "Tell Earth Command we'll be ready to jump to hyperspace in 2 hours," Cole said, "and send a message to all ship commanders. We're not just going to rescue New Haven Colony. We're going to find out who attacked them and make sure they never attack humans again." The massive fleet began to move, slowly at first, then gaining speed as it headed toward the edge of Earth's solar system. To anyone watching from the planet below, it looked like a storm cloud made of metal and lightning was moving through space. Behind the main fleet, more ships continued to launch, construction vessels, mobile repair platforms, even deep space factories that could build new ships and weapons while the fleet traveled. When humans went to war, they brought everything they needed to win completely. As the Defiance led the fleet toward deep space, Cole couldn't help but think about the aliens who had attacked New Haven colony. They had made a simple mistake. They had assumed that, because the colony was isolated and forgotten, no one would come to help. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human fleet suddenly appeared at the edge of the New Haven star system, and what they saw made every person on every ship stop breathing for a moment. It was like looking into a nightmare that had come to life. Enormous alien ships floated around the human colony world, but these weren't normal spacecraft. They looked like giant sea monsters that had been stretched out to impossible sizes, all tentacles and pulsing flesh and strange organic curves. The smallest of these creatures was bigger than a human battleship. The largest ones were so huge, they blocked out the light from the system's sun. Between the monster ships, thousands of smaller creatures darted back and forth like hungry fish. They were tearing apart everything they could find: space stations, mining platforms, even chunks of the planet's surface. Whatever these things were, they were eating the entire solar system. Captain Victor Rodriguez stood on the bridge of his cruiser Vengeance, staring at the horror show outside his window. He had been fighting in space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. "What in the hell are those things?" he whispered, not really expecting an answer. His science officer, Commander Kelly Foster, was bent over her scanner readings. Her face had gone pale as she studied the data. "Captain, these readings are incredible. It's a hive mind species. They all think as one giant brain. And sir," she paused, looking up at him with wide eyes, "they're literally eating the planet. They're consuming all the life on it." Rodriguez felt his stomach turn. "Any sign of our people?" Foster worked frantically at her controls. "Yes, sir. I'm detecting human life signs on the surface. They're scattered all over the planet, probably hiding in underground shelters or caves, but they're alive." At that moment, Admiral Tyler Cole's voice came through the communication system, reaching every ship in the massive human fleet. His voice was calm but deadly serious. "Attention all vessels, this is Admiral Cole. We have confirmed survivors on the planet's surface. Here are your orders. First, we get our people out of there safely. Second, we destroy every single one of these creatures. They made the mistake of attacking humans. Now they're going to learn why that was a very bad idea." What happened next was something the galaxy had never seen before. Most alien species, when faced with such overwhelming enemies, would have tried to negotiate or retreat to plan a careful strategy. Humans did something completely different. They attacked immediately, while simultaneously organizing rescue operations. Captain Rodriguez pushed his ship directly into the swarm of alien creatures. His crew worked with the kind of deadly efficiency that only comes from years of training for exactly these kinds of impossible situations. Every person on the Vengeance knew their job perfectly, and they did it without hesitation. "Weapons officer, target the big one on our left," Rodriguez ordered. "Helm, take us right through their formation. Don't slow down." The human ships were built differently than alien vessels. Where most species built their spacecraft to be fast and elegant, humans built theirs like flying fortresses. Thick armor, massive weapons, and the ability to keep fighting even when severely damaged. They were designed by people who came from Earth, a planet so dangerous that just surviving childhood there made you tougher than most alien soldiers. As the human fleet charged into battle, something became clear very quickly. The alien creatures had a hive mind, which meant they could coordinate perfectly and think as one giant intelligence. In most battles, this would be a huge advantage. But humans had grown up on a world where impossible odds were just part of daily life. Earth had hurricanes that could destroy cities, earthquakes that could split continents, and predators that hunted in coordinated packs. Humans had spent thousands of years learning how to survive when everything was trying to kill them. The alien hive mind found itself facing an enemy that actually got more dangerous when the situation looked hopeless. Human crews started working faster under pressure. Human captains began taking risks that no sane species would attempt. Human soldiers prepared for boarding actions against creatures that were literally trying to eat them. "Sir, we're getting reports from across the fleet," Foster called out over the sound of weapons firing. "All ships are engaging the enemy. Rescue shuttles are already launching toward the planet's surface." Rodriguez watched as human fighter pilots flew their small craft directly into the mouths of the giant bioships, firing weapons and then escaping through gaps that seemed impossibly small. He saw transport ships diving through swarms of hostile creatures to reach trapped colonists on the planet below. This was what made humans different. They didn't just fight to win, they fought to save their own people, no matter what the cost. And when something threatened human lives, they responded with a level of violence and determination that shocked the galaxy. The battle was just beginning, but the outcome was already clear. The creatures that had attacked New Haven Colony were about to discover why every other species in the galaxy was secretly afraid of humans. Captain Troy Hayes stepped carefully through the twisted corridors of the alien creature's body. Yes, body. Because this wasn't really a spaceship at all. It was a living thing, grown like a plant, but bigger than any building on Earth. The walls around him were wet and squishy, pulsing like a heartbeat. The floor felt soft under his boots, and the smell was terrible, like something had been rotting for years. Hayes led a team of 12 soldiers, all wearing heavy armor and carrying the biggest weapons they could find. They had blasted their way inside this monster to plant explosives and gather information. But what they found was much worse than anyone had expected. "Captain, you really need to come see this," called out Sergeant Linda Walsh from somewhere ahead. Her voice sounded strange through the radio, angry and sick at the same time. Hayes pushed through a narrow opening that felt like walking through the throat of some giant animal. What he saw on the other side made him stop cold. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high he couldn't see the top. But it wasn't empty. Along the walls, like decorations in some twisted museum, were the preserved remains of dozens of different alien species. Not just bones, whole bodies, kept perfectly intact like they had just died yesterday. Hayes recognized many of them. There were Zephyrians with their blue skin and tall, thin bodies, Takalani with their 4 arms and silver scales, Valthari with their big eyes and peaceful faces. These were species that served on the Galactic Council, the same aliens who had been debating whether to help humans just days ago. "Sir," Sergeant Walsh said, her voice tight with barely controlled rage, "I've been checking the records on my scanner. Some of these species, they received distress calls from their own colonies last year. The Zephyrians lost 3 settlements to unknown attackers. The Tokalani had 2 mining worlds go silent, but their governments decided it was too dangerous to send military help." Hayes felt his jaw clench. The picture was becoming clear now. These creatures had been attacking civilizations all across the galaxy for years, but instead of fighting back, most species had chosen to abandon their own people rather than risk a war. "They left their own people to become this," Walsh said, gesturing at the horrible display around them. Hayes nodded. It was exactly what he had feared. While alien governments sat in comfortable meeting rooms debating the cost of military action, their people had been captured, killed, and turned into trophies by these monsters. "Plant the charges," Hayes ordered. "This entire ship dies today." Several hours later, the battle was over. The human fleet had completely destroyed the alien swarm, but not before rescuing every single surviving colonist from New Haven. The Rescue operation had been incredibly dangerous, with human soldiers fighting their way through underground tunnels and collapsed buildings to find people who had been hiding for months. Now Hayes stood on the observation deck of a transport ship, watching families reunite after 300 years of separation. Children who had never seen Earth were meeting grandparents who had given up hope of ever seeing them again. Old colonists were crying as they hugged soldiers who had traveled across the galaxy to save them. Next to Hayes stood Ambassador Vexen, one of the alien observers who had followed the human fleet. The tall, blue-skinned diplomat looked confused and amazed at the same time. "I still cannot understand it," Vexen said. "Your species mobilized the largest military force I have ever seen within hours of receiving that distress call. Other civilizations would have spent months forming committees, planning careful diplomatic approaches, calculating the costs and risks." Hayes looked at the alien, then back at the rescued colonists boarding the transport ships. Some of these people had been born on New Haven and had never seen another human face from outside their small colony. Others were elderly settlers who remembered when the colony was first established centuries ago. "You want to know why we responded so fast?" Hayes asked. "It's because every human knows what it feels like to be alone and scared. Earth taught us that lesson a long time ago. Our planet tried to kill us with storms, earthquakes, wild animals, diseases, and 1,000 other things. We learned that, when someone is in trouble, you help them immediately. You don't form committees or debate costs. You act." Hayes pointed to a group of children who were laughing as they played with human soldiers. These kids were going to be food for those monsters. Not because they did anything wrong, but because their government wasn't there to protect them when they needed help most. Vexen was quiet for a long moment. "Your species is very different from ours." "Maybe," Hayes said. "But here's something you should understand about humans. We never abandon our own. It doesn't matter if they're on the other side of the galaxy. It doesn't matter if we lost contact with them 300 years ago. If humans are in trouble, we come running with everything we've got." As the human fleet prepared to leave the New Haven system, they left behind something important. A monitoring station, equipped with the most advanced communication equipment humanity could build. And along with it, a message that was broadcast on every frequency that alien species used to communicate. "This is Earth's Fleet Command. We are always listening. Any human settlement, anywhere in the galaxy, can call for help, and we will answer. And to any hostile force that thinks about attacking human colonies, remember what happened here today. An SOS to Earth is never answered lightly. It's answered with everything we have." The message was simple, but every alien government in the galaxy understood exactly what it meant. Humans had just proven that they would travel across the universe to protect their own people, and they would do it again, as many times as necessary. The age of abandoned colonies was over. Humanity was listening, and humanity would always answer the call.